Hello everyone, welcome to this webinar today. My apologies for the delay in getting started. We just seem to have a little bit of problem with our technology. I hope you can see us now and you can hear us. I'm Peter Towers, Managing Director of ESS BIZTOOLS. Welcome to COVID-19 survival plans to assist your client to survive during these difficult times, and we certainly have them at present. I'd like to start with the quote from our Prime Minister that he made only about 3 weeks ago. Whatever you thought 2020 was going to be about, think again. I wonder if Scott Morrison really appreciated what was going to happen in Australia when he made that comment. And since then, of course, we've had 3 stimulus packages now on COVID-19, coronavirus, which we're going to discuss today. But let's not forget, we also had a real heartbreak prior to then, didn't we? A lot of our clients did, from droughts, bushfires, floods and cyclones all over Australia. And now we've got this horrible virus that is sweeping the world and causing a lot of problems in Australia. So let's go through what we think your reaction should be. I know that some of you as accountants, business advisors are rather despondent at present. You're flat out doing tax returns. There's still all sorts of that sort of work to be done. And you've got clients asking you what they should be doing. So first of all, let's have a quick run through on the lockdowns that have now occurred. We've got pubs, we've got clubs, restaurants, except for those entrepreneurial operators of restaurants who have got the physical ability to have drive-ins operating, and a lot of them have introduced home deliveries. Might be a whole new business at the end of this. Cafes, the same thing. Food courts in shopping centres have been shut down. Casinos, churches and other places of worship, gymnasiums, indoor sports centres, beauty parlours, nail salons, swimming pools. You'd wonder what's left, wouldn't you? Libraries, real estate auctions, real estate open houses. And not affected at this stage, hairdressers. They've had a bit of a respite offered to them. They were originally going to be only allowed to take 30 minutes for a haircut. It was long enough for my haircut, but some of the ladies probably had requirements for longer haircuts or services. Shopping centres, except for the specific lockdowns. But as we know, and quite a number of the national franchise chains have shut down their stores, which is causing real pressure within shopping centres because there's not enough customers turning up, other than probably in the supermarkets. The mining industry is still going strong. BHP had advertisements in regional Queensland recently for 1,500 new positions. And I understand what they're doing is they're setting up reserve teams so that if one of their teams is affected by coronavirus, that they will be able to send the rest of the team, and that sick person, of course, off to the 14-day quarantine, and they'll introduce a new fresh team to be able to take over. So that's the way they're thinking, and I understand some of the other mining companies are doing the same thing. Manufacturing. Well, I think there'll be a big wake-up call in Australia when we finally get out of this crisis, but perhaps even now. Some people are saying, well, should we be producing more things in Australia? And I think we should have. We've allowed too much of our manufacturing industry to go offshore. But the manufacturers that are still there are still operating. Transport and logistics is still operating. We need it to get food and toilet paper distributed around Australia. Tradies, most of them are not affected. And, most tradies can't work at home. So they're still operating. Farmers, of course, and primary producers trying to keep that food supply up into the supermarkets because some people are buying in a panic type mode. Professional firms, when I'm saying not affected, many of you I know are working from home but you're still trying to offer a professional service to your clients. And that's really what we're going to be talking about today. Incidentally, if you have any questions while we're going through today, can you type your questions into your computer, and I will answer the questions later in the webinar for you. And golf courses, but we've had a few question marks over golf courses. In every state bar Victoria, they seem to be operating at present. So the golfers are probably going to get a game tomorrow, but you've got to play in groups of only 2, and you've got to be separated from everyone else. And you can't have a drink of alcohol. And but anyhow, golf's open. This is undoubtedly a defining moment, the biggest challenge in 100 years. A lot of the emphasis has fallen on the Prime Minister and the Treasurer and the Premiers and Chief Ministers and the Chief Medical Officers. But now I think it's your turn. It's the turn of accountants, because your clients need you now to be really thinking about their issues. We've all had a few days to overcome the shock of what's happening and the realization that businesses have been changed, at least for the next 6 months, and it might even be a lot longer. A lot of people are working from home. Some of your clients are probably working from home. How do you adapt in those situations? And there's government assistance packages. What are you doing about those? Have you become familiar with them so you can talk to your clients? And I'm totally convinced that small, medium enterprises in particular, because that's the bulk of the market that people who are listening to this webinar would be interested in, SMEs need commercial advice. They're not going to be very interested with taxation advice at present. They're looking for commercial advice. So my suggestion to you is please put on a Chief Financial Officer's hat and think about the issues in a broader sense than what you might traditionally think about with a particular client when your main objective has been to advise them on the income tax regime. You're going to need to supply leadership to your clients to be providing the trusted advisor type service to them. So let's look at some of the packages that are available. First of all, that they are targeted specifically at clients, businesses with turnovers under $50 million per annum. There's a tax-free boost of up to $100,000 to help pay wages. And the tax-free payment will also be paid even if there's no PAYGT tax payable. The calculation is up to $50,000 in a quarter. That's been calculated at 100% of the pay-as-you-go tax deduction that you've made or your client's made from the employee's wages. There's no registration required for this. That system has started and will be determined on the business activity statement that you lodge on the 28th of April. The next item that I want to talk to you about is the coronavirus supplement. This includes sole traders and self-employed persons. Their turnover could be up to $50 million, of course. But if they qualify for that, they will, first of all, be able to receive $550 per fortnight as the coronavirus supplement. And they will also be eligible to access up to $10,000 of their superannuation fund prior to the 30th of June. And they could access a further $10,000 of their superannuation funds in the period 1 July to 30th of September 2020. So some of your clients might be talking to you about that. I know there's a lot of superannuation fund advisors who are not very happy with the government's decision to allow this access to occur. And many people are suggesting that this should be the last cab on the rank, that before your clients access their superannuation. And I'll leave that for you to talk to your clients. There's a special category that's been introduced for businesses that have less than 20 full-time equivalent employees. If they employ apprentices, they will be able to receive an apprentice subsidy. The subsidy is calculated at 50% of the apprentice's wages for a 9-month period, 1 January to 30th September 2020, up to a maximum payment of $7,000 for each of those 3 quarters, so a total of $21,000 for the 9-month period. Your client needs to submit an application to the Australian Taxation Office, and the subsidy will be paid on a quarterly basis to your clients. The next one we want to mention is the instant asset write-off. This applies to businesses that have turnovers up to $500 million per annum. The write-off is up to $150,000, and obviously they can have as many acquisitions up to $150,000 as they wish. The acquisitions must be finalized and installed by the 30th of June 2020 to qualify. So ready for use, and that's very similar to the previous rules we had on the instant asset write-offs. There's also a 50% accelerating depreciation deduction available to 30th of June 2021, so 15 months for that. And then we turn to the JobKeeper payment scheme, which was announced this week. The government will pay $1,500 per fortnight for each employee, full-time employee, part-time employee. Now, the operative date is the 1st of March 2020. They had to be employed by the business then. And for casuals, it also applies as long as they were engaged in regular employment with your client for 12 months prior to the 1st of March 2020. And you may have to get involved in verifying that with your clients so that they've got an accurate file that they're submitting those details to the Taxation Office for. Don't forget, if you've got any questions you'd like to send them through to me, please do so. So this scheme started a couple of days ago on the 30th of March, so the clock is running. The eligibility, though, is that the client's turnover must have reduced by 30% relative to a comparative period a year ago. Now, the government issued some updated information on this yesterday, which I'll just get in front of me because I haven't memorized this or even got enough prompts. So the government is saying to establish that a business has faced a 30% fall in their turnover, most businesses would be expected to establish that their turnover has fallen in the relevant month or 3 months. Now, in the initial document they put out on how to calculate this comparative period, they didn't mention 3 months. They've obviously decided they're going to be tying this in with the business activity statements. So obviously, if your client's on a 3-month reporting basis, your comparison's got to be for 3 months. Because it then goes on to say, depending on the natural activity statement, I presume that means business activity statement reporting period of the business. But it then goes on to say that variations can occur, which is what they hadn't considered in the first place. Where a business was not in operation a year earlier, or where their turnover a year earlier was not representative of their usual or average turnover. So they may have had floods, which they had in various parts of North Queensland, on a fairly wide area in North Queensland in this same 3-monthly period last year. Or there's been an average turnover because of a large interim acquisition. The tax commissioner will have discretion to consider additional information that applies to that client so that you can help your clients to establish a realistic comparison period in 2019. The statement from Treasury also says that there will be some tolerance where employers in good faith estimate a greater than 30% fall in turnover, but actually experience a slightly smaller fall. I've noted that slightly smaller fall is not clarified as to what is exactly meant, but I assume from that that 27, 28% might be accepted if the client's not quite right. So that's an update on the latest information that was produced yesterday by the government on the JobKeeper payment scheme. Now, your client has to register for this, and those registrations are now open for that registration purpose. And the payments are going to be at least a month in arrears. You will need to make sure your client's taking that into account in the cash flow determination that they're going to be making in their planning. So the first payment's going to be in the first week of May 2020, and I would assume that that's basically the process that's going to be from there on. The Coronis SME Guarantee Scheme has also been announced recently, and this is to support SMEs who are facing cash flow problems. It's going to be 50% guaranteed by the federal government to the lenders. So they're issuing a guarantee, and it's for new unsecured loans for working capital. The government is trying to make sure that your clients have got sufficient cash to be able to continue to run their businesses or mothball their businesses and be able to pay for the staff that they're going to retain, because they're aware that there's going to be a lag from when your client has to make the payment of the salaries or wages to when the payment of $1,750 per fortnight will be made by the Australian Taxation Office to the business. And the reason I was talking about SMEs in this context is that this special loan facility is only available for businesses with turnovers under $50 million per annum. The Reserve Bank is making a special facility available of $90 billion to the banks to be able to supply this facility. So $90 billion has been allocated by the Reserve Bank, and they really want that money spent. So the maximum loan is $250,000. It's for a term of 3 years, and in the first 6 months, there is a repayment holiday of principal and interest. It's also listed as being unsecured lending in the Reserve Bank's press releases relative to the $90 billion. Incidentally, they're lending that money to the banks at 0.25%, and they've said that the banks have to be issuing it or lending it to SMEs at a low interest rate. This money is going to be available from, a couple of days ago, the 1st of April to the 30th of September. So if your clients are interested in obtaining these loans, they would be well advised to get their applications in as soon as possible. And I see this as being part of this survival planning process that we're just about to move into. So let's look at the COVID-19 survival plan. The first step for you, we recommend, is that you make sure each of your clients clearly understand these government stimulus packages and where they have to apply. They have submitted their applications and they have started to think about the cash flow effect that all this is going to have. Many of your clients will need your assistance in the applications. Your clients are going to need to have communications with suppliers to understand where their suppliers are at relative to supplying products, orders, and other suppliers interested in entering into any sort of arrangement to delay payment requirements, to offer a discount that might help your client survive in business. Sorry. Communication with landlords will be the next one. We've seen some front page publicity in the Financial Review and the Australian in the last couple of days about the situation with some of the major tenants of shopping centres around Australia, claiming they're refusing to pay the rent because the people are not attending the shopping centres. Our suggestion is that you advise your clients to be having some conversations with their landlords. The Prime Minister and the other members of the National Cabinet are meeting today, I understand, and this is one of the key subjects that's on the agenda for both commercial rent and also private renting of residential facilities and dealing with landlords. So it'll be interesting if the government's going to come out with some sort of package. But in the meantime, our recommendation is that your clients should be talking to their landlords to see what arrangements they can come to help your clients remain in business. One of the big areas for your clients to look at will be outstanding debtors. Having a detailed look at the debtors, seeing who can be contacted to try to get cash in as soon as possible. The next big area to look at is the stock or inventory within the business. What stock could be liquidated now to get some cash into the business? Whenever I do a review of a business, I always find that there's extra stock. Might be last year's fashions, if the client's running a fashion business. It might be that something was bought a few years ago and everyone's forgotten about it. So could all that be put together and advertised in a major sale to generate some cash? Surplus assets are also an issue with a lot of businesses. The boss went to an auction and bought something that didn't quite work the way they wanted it, and they put it in the back of the shed or the back of the yard. Or they decided to buy a rather large piece of machinery because they had a contract that needed it. That contract's finished 2 years ago. They haven't had a similar contract since. and that asset cost a couple $100,000. Could it be sold to generate some cash? And if they have a similar job comes along in the future, why couldn't they hire some assets to do the work? So it's that type of thinking. And it's then going to be necessary to prepare budgets and cash flow forecasts. The other very important aspect is to look at the potential sales in the business for the next 6 months in detail and possibly 12 months in detail, week by week by week. What do you expect the business to generate in sales income? And then the next area to look at before the budgets and cash flows are prepared is what's the manning going to be required based on those sales budgets. And your client might have to reach a decision that people have to be laid off at this stage, and obviously that has already happened for many businesses around Australia, so that there is a new labour budget determined that has got some connection to the forecast income that the business is going to receive. So this will give you the position of being able to then determine what is the overall position. The budget and cash flow forecast has been done. And then the client is in a position where they could, with some confidence, approach the bank for a loan, utilising the funding that the Reserve Bank of Australia has made, these special working capital loan facilities of up to $250,000 to be repaid over a 3-year period. To have that conversation with the bank, the applicant is going to need financials for 2018-19, interim financial accounts up to January or February this year, and a plan. And this would be the COVID-19 survival plan. And this will enable a strong business case to be presented to the bank for the loan. You might require more than $250,000 for this particular client, so you'll have to go beyond the Special Reserve Bank of Australia funded loan facility that's going to be available. And you're probably going to need to supply even more details if you need that sort of funding from the bank. Incidentally, the Reserve Bank anticipate that not only the big 4 banks, but a whole range of other financial institutions, numbering some 114 in total, will be able to participate in this loan facility. Depending on the amount of money that your client requires, it may also be desirable to have a good look at whether it's possible to raise some capital. Section 708 of the Corporations Act would be the best vehicle to use, I think, especially if you're not already approaching the 50 shareholder limit for that client. Raising capital under Section 708 can be finalised fairly quickly, and there's no need to go to any government organisation to get approval to do that. But those investors would undoubtedly require to see financial accounts and a updated business plan, budgets and cash flow forecasts. And if you're allowed a couple of weeks to prepare that, and then to have discussions with that special targeted group of people that you're allowed to talk to for a Section 708 capital raising, the process could probably be completed in 4 to 6 weeks. Or you could look at crowdsourced funding equity raising, but that will not be as fast, because you need to go through, or your client needs to go through the process of appointing a crowdsourced funding intermediary. They probably need to understand how crowdsourced funding equity raising works in the first place, and what the role of the intermediary is. And then the listing period can be for a period of 90 days. And I always say to companies, make sure you take the 90 days. So that would probably blow out to somewhere around 20 to 26 weeks to be able to successfully raise capital as crowdsource funding, equity raising. Unfortunately, in some cases, by the time you've got to this stage, the decision might have been that the business should be closing. Hopefully that could be just for a short period until the end of this crisis, but in some cases it may be permanent, of course. And unfortunately, that's how the business cycle works. But let's move on. There's a lot more to be done. So out of that, you could apply for one of these COVID-19 loans, is what I'm calling them, which is the loans that are being funded through the money supplied by the Reserve Bank. And then you'll be able to assist your client to implement their COVID-19 survival plan. I think it's very important for you as the accountant to be very proactive with your clients about this. Your clients may have gone through a very dismal reaction to the events that have occurred over the last 10 days or so, where they've had to lay off staff or even stop business activities because they were cafes, restaurants, or one of those many other businesses, gymnasiums, all sorts of businesses that the government has issued a prohibition against business activities. But life will carry on, and businesses need to be gearing up that at the end of this period, which hopefully is only a period running up to 6 months, that they're ready to go. They've got their thoughts in place, their strategies in place. They know how their business is going to operate, rather than just stagger to the starting line of post-coronavirus trading and then start to think it all through. They need to be doing that now. They need to be having conversations with you about that. And this is the implementation of the survival plan. I think you need to be having business review meetings, diarise, set times and dates. And obviously, in most cases, you will be using technology like Zoom to be able to do that, so that you can communicate with your client and you can check how they're going on these various activities. I've now got some suggestions on the ongoing management for this crisis that's after the survival plan's been prepared. I think each of your clients should be establishing a coronavirus disaster team, 2 or 3 people who meet daily or communicate daily, might be a better way of putting that at present. Might only be 5, 10 minutes. Some cases might be a bit longer, depending what it is. But they should be reviewing the latest pronouncements from the government as to what you can do and what you cannot do in various businesses. Looking at any new announcements that have been made. This webinar is concentrating on federal government support. Each of the states and territories now have programs that they're offering for coronavirus. So that team needs to be monitoring what's happening, probably in conjunction with you on some of that, to make sure that their business is aware of the latest regulations or the latest funding that's available. Working from home is not as easy as what it might sound, and many businesses are going to need to try to put in place some rules, some suggestions as to how people might effectively work at home and who can be in the group with them. We've got governments now imposing stricter rules as to who can be actually in a house. When I first wrote these notes 3 weeks ago, we were really talking about the concept of 2 or 3 employees coming together to work out of one house. And the questions we were raising then were, was there an insurance issue? Was there a communication issue? Was there a workplace health and safety issue? The government, to a large extent, has clarified that, because they're basically saying that there cannot be visitors within a house. But you might need to make sure your clients understand that and they understand where their people are working from if they're working at home. And if they have not already done so, I'd be suggesting the concept of a daily meeting or a huddle. They may already do that, but let's continue it on now that people are working from home or partly in the office or the workshop and others are working at home. Invest in Zoom or Skype so that they can have a meaningful meeting to keep people involved, keep them informed. And some of this communication might have to happen 3 or 4 times a day for some of the team so that they feel that they're still part of an organization. Suppliers are very important, especially to make sure that back orders are being supplied and to know when products are going to be delivered. New supply chains are going to be very important for a lot of your clients, I suggest, because people are saying to themselves, we're not going to get caught like this again. When a lot of the supply chain is coming out of one country and there's a major problem, everything gets cut off. Perhaps your clients should be looking at, could we be getting supply from individual businesses in another country, perhaps diversifying 30% of the purchase requirements into an alternative country. And perhaps that alternative country should be in a completely different geographical zone in the world, so that problems that might occur in Asia hopefully are not also occurring in South America at the same time. Contact with customers is going to be very important, that your clients should be communicating with their clients, especially the clients that they make good profits from. Finding out what they're doing, what's their order books looking like, what services are they likely to require. But monitoring the cash flow position is going to be very, very important. Understanding where the money is and where it's going to come from. And we talked about that earlier. Chasing up debtors, looking at the inventory, looking at surplus assets, clearly trying to identify what the weekly sales might be and what the labor requirements might be. It's very important. To assist in the preparation of budgets and cash flow forecasts, we have negotiated an in-principle agreement with Plan Guru, one of the world's leading suppliers of budgets and cash flow forecast technology. And we will be jointly announcing that with Plan Guru next week. But they're going to introduce a special inducement for accountants and business operators to subscribe for their products so that these forecasts, which are going to be very important, can be prepared. Review costs. One of the first things that should be done is to grab a ruler and go through line by line in the profit and loss account and clearly analyze with your client what each of those costs are and what do they represent, and could reductions be implemented to save the business some money. Employee manuals also should be reviewed. And we're not actually suggesting that this is your role, but perhaps acting as the project manager for your client to make sure all these things are done. Put them into your checklist within the COVID-19 survival plan. But the employee manuals probably need updating to incorporate strategies for your client's business relative to the coronavirus. Making sure employees understand that if they have the symptoms, they have to go into the 14-day quarantine. They're not to continue to come to work. The heading that I've got there, I think is very important. You should be putting on your commercial response hat, not a tax review hat at this stage. is my strong suggestion to you. Your clients are looking for commercial advice, advice that you can offer as the Chief Financial Officer. There may be some items, of course, that you are not expert in, but acting as the project manager, things like human resources, workplace health and safety, clients' IT issues and things like that, but refer them to other people who are expert in those areas, because these things may need some pretty urgent attention to enable the client to be able to maintain their business and get it into a situation where at the end of this 6 months or longer period, they're ready for immediate takeoff, to get back into the market, to have the team back, to have them motivated, ready to go, is going to be very important. And there's no one else in most of the support networks that operate with small businesses and medium-sized enterprise like the accountant. It's not a legal issue. It might be marketing in some cases if the marketing consultant's got a good brief and a knowledge on the overall business. But in 70 to 80% of cases, I think it's you. That's why accountants are continually referred to as the trusted advisor. And that is attested to by 75 to 80% of small business operators whenever surveys are done. This is your opportunity to be able to offer those services to your clients. They need you. And I think that's what I've just said. Now, this is not easy, and no one's suggesting it's easy. And if you need support, please contact us. From next week, ESS BizTools is going to be presenting a weekly video session, Coronavirus Ask the Experts. It's all to do with helping your clients remain viable during this very difficult period. So we're going to put a team of experts together. We've got a human resources, workplace health and safety expert. We've got Paul Barnaby, the Australian manager for Plain Guru, looking at budgeting and cash flow forecasts. We have Jordan Lowry, who's the human resources expert from Blackstone Business Services. We have Andrew Geddes, formerly the chair of Green Cross Limited for 11 years, who's going to be talking about directors' responsibilities in this period and gearing up to be ready to take off once this crisis is over. And we have other people in the panel. We'll be asking you to send in questions and we'll be giving answers. And hopefully this will give you some support. And we're going to be suggesting to our subscribers that you look at reproducing that type of presentation to your own clients each week. Australia's got out of disasters in the past. The First World War, the Spanish flu epidemic in 1919, which took 15,000 lives in Australia. There was only 5 million population at that stage in Australia. So that was a very significant loss of life, very significant. Then we had the Second World War, and we've had other problems like the financial crises. We've recovered from those. So this problem's not going to last forever. The challenge for accountants working with your clients, acting as the Chief Financial Officer, is to try to influence your client to be in the best possible position to survive this crisis and to be ready for takeoff as soon as the regulations are lowered by the government. As soon as they stop issuing these bans on various businesses operating, issuing the orders would allow coffee shops and cafes to open again. so people can get back to their normal life, so you can go to the gym of a morning. It'll be great, won't it? So I'd like to issue an invitation to you to go to our website, www.essbiztools.com.au, where we have Survival in Difficult Times, Learn More. You can go onto there and have a look at the various components of the product package that we've assembled to assist you through these difficult times to advise your clients. This will give you a full appreciation of what's included in the Survival in Difficult Times product package. Your investment, unfortunately, it does come back to money, but you can subscribe for this product package on its own, standalone product, for 12 monthly payments of $92 per month, including GST, or there's a discounted upfront payment, including GST, of $990. To subscribe, please go to Survival in Difficult Times, Learn More, subscribe now. So you go onto our website, www.essbiztools.com.au, Survival in Difficult Times, Learn More, subscribe now. But we also have a gold package. A gold package includes everything that ESS BizTools produces, which includes a separate government grant program called ESS Biz Grants, and 23 other independent product packages. You obtain everything for them for a payment of $261.80, including GST per month, or you can take advantage of an upfront discounted price of $2,970, including GST. And all the information for that is available on our website, www.essbiztools.com.au. If you require assistance on any aspect of what I've talked about today, if you'd like an introduction to the human resources, workplace health and safety consultant that I mentioned, Jordan Lowry, or to Paul Barnaby, the Australian New Zealand manager of Plan Guru, or to Andrew Geddes to talk about directors' issues, or you want to talk to me about what we've got in our product package, just send me an email, please, and we will get back to you. So the email address is peter@essbiztools.com.au, or telephone me on 1-800-232-088. Don't be lonely at this period of time. Everyone's in the same boat together. And if you need some advice to help your clients or to help your accountancy business, I'm very happy for you to make contact with us so that we can proactively assist. Keep safe, please. These are challenging times. Good luck and best wishes as you look at what might be able to be achieved with your clients to try to get them fully motivated, fully organized, so that they're in the situation to be able to get right back into business when this crisis is over. I've got no questions that have been typed in. If you thank you. I did have a couple of questions. I've just got them here now. Lee's asked, where does it say full-time equivalents for the apprentice subsidy? You might be right there, Lee. I think it just says full-time employees. I have got that as a question, though, that I was following up on. So I will try to get that clarified, and we'll put that onto our website. And Mark's asked, is the job seeker payments taxable? As far as I know, they are a tax-free payment that's been made to the employer, but we will check on that also and put that on our website. But as far as I know, it's a tax-free subsidy that's been paid. So thank you very much for participating in this webinar today. We have regular ongoing webinars, and if there is another stimulus package that applies to businesses, we will be updating this type of webinar presentation to incorporate whatever's included in stimulus package number 4 or whatever it might be numbered. So keep safe, and I hope that you and your colleagues in your accountancy firm and your clients are able to survive during these very difficult times. Have a good day. Goodbye.